First of all, I want to talk about something else. This should be unsurprising to anybody who knows me, but I am very excited about something, and it's the whole reason why we're doing this today. We finally got a release date for Disney and Strive. It's October 31st. Boom. I already had this queued up because I'm so normal. So yeah, October 31st. Just gonna add it in, and I'm very excited. So I wanted to basically go through all of the games featuring Dizzy as a playable character. Well, the mainline ones. I don't make any promises about Death Strikers, Judgment, and Iska yet. Maybe if we have time or if I have the energy. But I really like Dizzy, and I kind of wanted to show why I really like Dizzy. And to do so, I thought it'd be fun to basically go through all of her arcade modes. Maybe not accent cores, it's very difficult, but at least also all of her story modes when applicable. And yes, I have a bit of a twist about that too. If you're familiar with the series, you might be curious how I'm going to handle the story mode of today's game, actually. But we'll talk about that later. And of course, because again, I'm so normal, I also just had the trailer itself queued up. I am very excited. And again, very normal, clearly. I have no clue how she'll play though, so I have no clue if I'll mesh with her playstyle. Imagine all this hype and then I don't like playing as her in Strive. There's a possibility that can happen, and that'd be really upsetting, obviously, but let's hope for the best. Yeah, Disney Princess vibes for sure. So yeah, I am very excited. Guilty Gear X is a weird game. It's actually the only mainline that hasn't been re-released on current gen. I have theories about that because I'm pretty sure this is a Naomi game, as in like Sega Dreamcast hardware, and we really haven't gotten many official re-releases of Naomi games. I remember hearing that Marvel vs. Capcom 2 was a big deal because it basically is the first attempt at like releasing a Dreamcast port of sorts through current hardware that isn't just like a rebuild of a game. You know, not like Sonic Adventure DX where they kind of just rebuilt the game for a remaster. So yeah, let's see how this goes. Guilty Gear X plays really weirdly. It's missing a bunch of stuff, so I'm used to accent core, meaning this will probably be bad. So I'm actually going to play on beginner because I don't trust my ability to play this game very well. But if we look at key config, you'll notice we don't have hotkeys for a lot of things that we normally have hotkeys for. We do not have Dust, and we don't have RC as hotkeyable. So that's going to be fun, meaning to roaming cancel, you'd have to press like 3 buttons at once or something. And then for like Dust, you have to press slash and heavy slash together. So this is going to go great, and that's again why I'm playing on beginner, because I have a feeling I'm gonna get a little bit bodied even at beginner, just because I'm really not used to playing a Guilty Gear without Dust working that way. Also in this version, I'm pretty sure triangle is default colors, so we'll just jump in and play as Dizzy. I have a lot to say about this character, and again, part of the reason I wanted to do this was to kind of show off why I care about her so much, because when I got back into the series with Xrd, I really connected with this character a lot, so it's not really going to be obvious in this one just because there's like no story mode in Guilty Gear X. This is just an arcade mode. But to give a basic rundown of her story, Guilty Gear 1 involves a tournament where, like, basically Justice is trying to destroy humanity or something, so then Soul and Kai end up stopping her. But then Dizzy is the daughter of Justice, a half-gear, and basically, what am I trying to say? Basically is hunted by the government because they think she's going to be very dangerous as a half-gear. Basically, there's strong anti-gear sentiment, and so everyone's like scared of her, and thus she's basically on constant alert, being hunted. Testament is also looking after her, and basically trying to atone for working with Justice in the previous game. So yeah, in general, I think there's a very fascinating story at play, and yeah, Dizzy is the daughter of Soul as well, meaning, yeah, Kai and Soul are, like, Kai is Soul's son-in-law, which leads to a very good moment in XR where they actually realize it, and there's a whole, like, after-story chapter in Revelator where they just have like a really awkward family moment. It's like my favorite part of XR's story. Like, unironically, this is like my favorite part of that story. It's just them like trying to figure out the dynamic at play. One of my favorite parts is at one point Kai goes to answer the door because Soul is there, and he's like, what do I say to him? And Soul just wants to like spar or something, and Kai's like so relieved that he doesn't have to talk about it yet. As confusing and timey-wimey as Guilty Gear can get, and like, with Dizzy especially, there's some weird quirks to her story. I do feel like a lot of the quiet moments end up being my favorite parts sometimes, and that's definitely the case here. By the way, I haven't looked at a moveset for X in a bit, so I practiced a little bit to like get everything set up over the weekend, or actually like last week. But I kind of didn't look at her moves at all for this game. And again, they add moves later on, specifically like X2, later known as XX or Double X, which apparently it's like Dizzy's kind of a zoner, which I'm not really used to. Then again, I kind of play a lot of characters like zoners without meaning to. Zelda, obviously, and what game is she in when they give her the rework? It's Smash 4. Is a bit more of like a zoner with the Phantom and everything. Also realizing they could definitely do more with that going forward. Looking at moves is against the spirit of fighting games. I beg to differ personally, but you do you. I personally like knowing what my character can do in a battle. So yeah, her wings are Sentient, Necro, and Undying, and are very powerful in their own right. So yeah, there's like a $500,000 bounty on her at this point. Everyone's after her. The canon of this game is particularly weird, and also X2 is kind of in the same boat, because series creator Daisuke Ishiwatari didn't really have a lot to do with the story modes of these games. They kind of focused more on like the gameplay side, from what I gather, but basically just took like key points of these games and worked them into like XR's story, which ends in Overture 2, as that's like the first really big story push in the series. But basically, to make sure that people were, like, able to follow the story from the previous games as well, elements were brought in. Look it up in Street Fighter 2, they just want you to figure things out. Now looking at moves, only Gunflame, yeah, that's basically how Peter plays Guilty Gear, and it's really fascinating, as someone who's, like, trying to carefully, precisely learn moves. Like, with Elphelt, my problem is I kind of forget, like, a lot of her moves. I think with Bridget, I would always forget Starship. I think that's the name of it. Partly because I don't like DPs. Partly because I'm a controller player, and I always have been. So yeah, I don't like DP motions in any game, and that's part of the reason why I like Guilty Gear, because I almost feel like you can get away with not learning stuff like that a lot more easily. Anyway, I'm just winging it. This is beginner. This is partly just an excuse to talk about Dizzy. Dizzy's probably my favorite character in the series at this point. In terms of story, I, for the longest time, didn't actually like Dizzy when I first played Accent Core, and it's mostly just because her outfit is weird. I'm not really a fan of it, and even now it's a little much, to be honest. It's, well, very, like, contrasting to her current outfit. But yeah, I don't think I said it because I was fighting tech issues, but hello, welcome everybody. Hope everyone is doing well. Today is Monday, last day of September. So yeah, I hope everyone had a decent day so far. My day has been odd, partly just because I have to wake up early. I don't like waking up early for streaming, but hopefully at some point my like actual sleep schedule is decent enough that I don't have to actually wake up early, and this is just when I wake up normally. But then some days like this, I just stay up till 5 a.m. playing a video game. So clearly I make good choices with my life. Yeah, the move pool in this game is really small. It's kind of interesting, actually. It almost feels like back to basics in a way with Strive, because it is paired back. But again, we don't know what her actual moveset is going to be in Strive yet. We only know she is in the game and is looking very pretty, and we don't actually know how the hell she plays, which is definitely a concern. Again, I'm not really someone who particularly meshes with her playstyle anyway, just because, again, she's a bit more of a zoner, I think. Alright, so how my day has been, help. I apologize, I don't think I can send help, as I'm currently fighting Milia. By the way, it's actually one of my least favorite characters to fight in Guilty Gear. Oh yeah, by the way, the control stick doesn't work in this game. So that's fun. Normally, what I do is use the D-pad for most things, but then for like, forward circle motions, I end up using the control stick, but I can't do that here. Meaning, we're kind of having to wing it. Luckily, this is like the most restrictive game in that sense. This is definitely a game I would like to see a remaster of, or a redo of in some capacity, just because there is a lot of story attached to this game that is relevant going forward. I love only ever making good decisions. Me too. I only make the best decisions, clearly, with my life. Masato 1 is a really fascinating character as well, partly because he dies in this game. Basically, his familiar Eddie ends up taking over for a bit. I don't even know how he comes back, because as interested as I am in the character, I can't quite wrap my head around his lore, so I actually don't know how he's like back to being Zato in like XR onwards, because, yeah, where they kind of leave off with the character, he's still Eddie. Alright. This is great. And again, Zato's also kind of annoying to fight. Not a fan. Also, there's no aerial dust move, because dust is just heavy slash and slash together. So it's the same as, like, aerial slash or jump slash. Also, I'm not gonna talk about, like, you know, numpad notation, partly because my computer now doesn't have a numpad, meaning I can't literally look down and be like, okay, what is this called? I'm just gonna say, like, forward circle, because I am kind of a scrub in that way. I'm trying to do like a back DP, which is not easy. Disney has another special too, and it's like forward, back, forward, and then quarter circle. And it's like really annoying to try to do as you're actually trying to also fight somebody. Also, it's really hard on the D-pad. I also don't know if she has in this game. I probably should have looked first. There's also the IK system, or instant kill, where you press all face buttons together and then do like 2 quarter circle forwards and then heavy slash. That's not in this game for Dizzy, because Dizzy has a very special instant kill in the X games that is a nightmare in input, and I definitely want to show the input at some point, just because it is a headache to try to set up this input. I have no clue how you're supposed to do it. The general recommendation I've seen is basically taunt to lock yourself into a position, so like you don't accidentally jump or anything, but it's a really wild input. One of the most complicated inputs I've ever seen, though I'm also not like a KOF player. I hear that game can get very bad. It's him, Saul Goodman. I do like how, like, you have Saul Goodman, and then, like, it's not a pretzel, it's worse, in my opinion. I like how you have, like, Saul Goodman as a nickname, and then for the other characters, you just have, like, Asphalt, and, like, Brisket. Actually, now I'm gonna look. Yeah, it's forward, back, forward, then forward circle, heavy slash. And there's also like a shield one, which is... Wow, that's weird. The punch one, number 6. I have no clue how to input that either. I'm trying. Not successfully. Yeah, no, probably not gonna be able to show that off, unfortunately. Yeah, I actually don't know if instant kills are a thing. I actually don't know if roaming cancels were in the first Guilty Gear. I don't think they were, which is fine. There's plenty of nonsense in Guilty Gear 1 anyway, and part of the reason we're doing a Dizzy retrospective specifically so I don't have to deal with Guilty Gear 1 quite yet, because I actually don't like that game. I don't think anyone really likes that game, except for like the multiplayer aspect of just how stupid it is. But like actually trying to do the arcade mode, it sucks, and you have to do it like perfectly to be able to fight Baiken at the end. Basically, you have to win every round, or not every round, you have to win every like battle. You can lose a round, I think. But yeah, you basically have to have a perfect run in order to fight Baiken, and Justice really sucks. So needless to say, I don't really feel like doing that again. But yeah, as you can tell, Dizzy is extraordinarily powerful, but also is like constantly afraid of hurting people with her power, which makes her a very fascinating character from that regard, because she's constantly like struggling to control her powers at this point, and is sort of like isolated in order to avoid hurting people. But later on in this, basically they kind of retcon a bunch of stuff in. For example, at this point, I'm pretty sure all we really know is that, basically that Dizzy is constantly being hunted by various bounty hunters. But I'm pretty sure, like, later on they establish the reason they find out about her in the first place is because, Kai ends up meeting her first. Which Baiken meme? There's a lot, actually. The one that comes to mind is the top surgery one, with Anji. But yeah, it's one of those where it's like, it kind of needs to be more specific. There's quite a few memes. Yeah, I'm not using Dust enough because it's weird in this game. I just don't really like using it. Whichever you want, okay. That really narrows it down. Okay, that sucks. Yeah, it's been fun. As someone who's liked Dizzy since Xrd primarily, and I feel like she got kind of overshadowed for a bit. Despite being a like fan favorite, I feel like she got a little bit overshadowed just because she wasn't in Strive for so long, so people ended up gravitating to, like, you know, obviously Brisket and Elfelt and characters like that, and Dizzy is still a very popular character though. And it's been nice seeing all like the fan art and all the like love for this character, as someone who basically discovered the character later, because again, when I played Accent Core, I looked at her outfit and was like, I'm not gonna play this character. Though I almost feel like it's partly because of playing video games out in the living room and not wanting to be judged for playing a character who's dressed like this. Though then again, I also played Jam at that point, so I actually don't know if that argument holds up now that I think about it. Also, another change between 1 and X is Faust is Faust instead of Dr. Baldhead. So Faust is a fascinating character because he's actually not like a bad guy, basically. Just very unusual in like his movement and such, and obviously very lanky. It's him, Fist. I feel like that's a reference I am not understanding. Also, I am almost dead. I need to stop. Like, I need to actually pay attention. It's really hard doing this on a D-pad, actually. I'm using a DualSense, by the way, which is probably not the best D-pad. It's usually considered one of the worst D-pads for fighting games. Some people actually are, like, at pro level with a DualSense, and I don't understand how. Would I like playing Faust? I don't know. Maybe try him out at some point. He's very different in Strive, though. They kind of go for a horror aesthetic, which is based on events of the another story that they added later. They basically explain how he got so messed up in that DLC story. But he's a very interesting character, like, genuinely. I think most Guilty Gear characters have super fascinating stuff to them, where, like, from a pure story standpoint, I don't think I dislike any Guilty Gear character. I obviously dislike them from gameplay reasons sometimes. Like, I hate fighting, you know, Chip, for example. But I have nothing against the characters' like actual story. Some of the characters though, like Chip and also like Giovanna right now, are mostly just kind of undercooked in terms of like lore. Like obviously characters that have been around since the beginning, like Dizzy, just have a lot more going on story-wise, though again, I almost feel like she's kind of dropped off a little bit. I don't play Faust that often, but I know someone who does. He's very interesting. I can't quite wrap my head around how to actually play as him, but it's one where it's like if you see high-level Faust play, it's really impressive because it just feels like so much nonsense is happening on screen at once. It's kind of like almost like trying to overwhelm your opponent, sort of. So we're in the home stretch. The final two opponents are always fixed as Testament and Dizzy. Unfortunately, we will not hear Dizzy's theme because there's actually a mirror match theme in X, and I think X2 also. By the way, X2 and Accent Core actually do have different stories, so during this little retrospective, I will be showing both separately in terms of like actually going through both, but I think I'll only do one arcade run, just because I don't think, I don't really want to put myself through boss level Eno more times than I have to, if I'm being blunt. It's the gender. Yeah, Testament's fascinating because they're very gender despite also technically being like agender practically, or like non-binary. It's very fascinating, but again, still very gender, nonetheless. So yeah, in the story, Testament is in this grove trying to protect Dizzy from all the intruders who are trying to go after the bounty. So it makes sense that they are the penultimate fight in this. Though again, there's the irony of if you're playing as Dizzy, then you end up fighting them anyway, along with Dizzy as Dizzy, so it's a little bit confusing. You also can see her true form in the intro. I don't think that ever comes into play beyond that though, which is kind of unfortunate. I almost feel like they should do something more of that. They kind of toy with the concept of her, like, you know, kind of restraining her powers a bit. There's a lot of theories on why, for example, both of her wings are more uniform now for Strive, and people wonder if it's because she's like more in control of her powers or something. Oh, that's bad. We are very much at a disadvantage right now. But again, we're playing on relatively low AI difficulty, so it's not a big deal. Yeah, Dizzy's a very interesting character. Like, I don't know why she has this, like, dragon tail. It's a very unique design, I think. That's part of the reason why she stands out. Even in addition to, like, you know, other reasons potentially for her standing out. It's almost this case of, like, just a very unique character, through and through. But again, I feel like her story is fairly basic in a way. But it's just kind of like nice and sweet, actually, especially as you get into the later games and they kind of go into her arc of like being accepted more. It's kind of a found family situation, which we'll see after this fight. But again, unfortunately, we do not get her theme. We get the mirror theme anyway. This fight is gonna be kind of rough. But even on beginner, final bosses can still be hard. As someone who basically struggles constantly against, like, again, Eno and Accent Core. It's, like, surprisingly difficult even on the lowest possible difficulty, because fighting games really want your quarters. Also, Guilty Gear 1 wasn't even on arcades, if I'm not mistaken. It was only on PlayStation. This would have been the first, like, arcade Guilty Gear, if I'm remembering right. There's a lot of versions of this game, too. I have plans to show off 2 of them after this, so obviously you might be thinking, wow, this is a short stream, but I do plan to show that other content as well. So that'll be fun in a bit. But first we need to get through this fight, which we are actually losing at the moment. We are down 1 round, but it's fine. Again, beginner AI, we shouldn't have too many issues here. You can also just spam moves, potentially, and get through that way. Maybe I'm trying to play too well. Maybe I'm actually, like, not being degenerate enough to actually make this easier. And if I just, like, spam moves constantly, maybe I'd actually be having an easier time, oddly enough. That's often the case with fighting games. Sometimes, like, spamming is actually effective, because then people don't know how to react to it. They don't know how to counterplay like pure randomness, basically. We're not even using like her back circle or back quarter circle move enough, but there's like variations to it. Like basically, depending on which button you press, you get a different like little guy to try to deal damage. But yeah, that takes care of Guilty Gear X. That was not very long at all, as arcade games tend to be relatively short. This game doesn't really have any story content, but there's a survival mode. Actually, Dizzy is unlocked by getting to level 30. It's not a linear scale. You basically gain levels as you fight. Only losing on the last fight is really good. I think I lost to Biken, didn't I? Or someone else. But yeah, there's no explanation for this, but in the story, after being stopped by Sol and Kai, basically Kai sets her up to live with the jellyfish pirates, including May and Johnny. So that's what this ending image is for. I wasn't looking? Okay, that's fair. But yeah, there's no direct story mode in this version, but again, I do have a plan, because there is actually another version of this game that does have a story mode, and I actually found a translation of everything. So we'll go through that. I'll try to read out everything as we go, try not to get completely destroyed while also reading out everything. Yeah, Guilty Gear X is pretty straightforward. Again, I would love a redo of this game, partly just get an official English translation of X Plus's additional story content, which we'll be going over next. But in general, it's just kind of a nice little easygoing arcade game. Again, I do like the sort of messages in this game, at least, of like, you know, found family with her connecting with the jellyfish pirates. And then she basically stays with them through the rest of the X games, and then eventually ends up like being in Kai's care, and then they eventually have a kid. That's a whole complicated thing in terms of like how gear, like quarter gear reproduction would even work. Because if she's a half gear, then Sin would be a quarter gear, right? Does it work that way for gears? Also, gears are, like, I don't even know how to explain what a gear is, weirdly enough. I just know the term. Again, clearly I thought this out, and this wasn't a spur-of-the-moment thing, and I almost streamed, like, Sonic Ring Racers instead, or Dr. Robotnik's Ring Racers instead, because I'm that organized of a person. Yeah, overall that went pretty okay. These credits are surprisingly long for being like a 2001 arcade game, or like 2000, I forget the year. Super Being? World's strongest 5-year-old, basically. And like, in this game, Dizzy is supposed to be 3, but basically in human years is closer to like late teens, early 20s. And yeah, Sin is like, essentially kind of like an adult at this point, if that's the case, because if he's 5, then he'd already be in his 20s, basically. It's weird, it's complicated. But yeah, that's Guilty Gear X overall. Again, it's kind of weird that this is the one missing piece of the Guilty Gear story in terms of like, you can play it on current hardware. This one's just kind of stuck on like PS2 and Dreamcast and other means, shall we say. I guess I'll just put this. This is sort of like this is the acronym of my username, so that works, I suppose. Yeah, that takes care of that. So we are going to move on to something else. The other high score is my like practice attempt, so I actually did better than my practice run, which is a nice feeling. And they actually keep individual scores for every character, so that's pretty cool.